And here we go.
Welcome everybody to a new view on travel. This is episode 12. My name is Sherry Coleman and I am the manager of Robert Q Travel in Goderich, Ontario. Tammy?
I'm Tammy Prost with Tropical Escapes, Destination Weddings and Travel Inc., located in Saskatchewan.
And I'm Christine Turner from 𝑚𝒂𝒎𝒚, and I am over here in sunny British Columbia, Vancouver, Canada.
Yay.
I did that backwards.
Yeah, we're back to give you, we have a lot of news, a lot of updates, a lot of information going on that's happened over the past few weeks. If you like our show, please subscribe to our Facebook channel and our YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. We're glad to have you anyway. I have a question for you before we get into the news though. Do you guys think that liquor stores sales have increased during COVID?
Oh yeah. They definitely have a lot more of my money than I used to spend.
Yeah. And I heard them, one of the employees just 2-3 months ago, and they were saying like, you wouldn't believe how much stock we're going through. Like they're literally, it's blowing off the shelves.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely.
I was at a liquor store in London. This was, back before our last lockdown. And I was stunned to walk in there and the shelves were empty. Like there was nothing on the shelves. And this was a very, very big LCBO. It was crazy to see. I was like, wow, there's a lot of drinkers in London. On that note, Ontario liquor stores, for us here in Ontario, have signed an agreement with Aeroplan. So they got rid of the Air Miles card in January. They were no longer taking those, but they must have gotten a contract together. So when you go to the liquor store now in Ontario, you can scan your Aeroplan card if you have one and collect points towards Aeroplan points.
So I'm curious about this, Tammy. Did you ever have this sort of situation where you could collect points when you buy booze in Saskatchewan?
Not at our liquor stores, but our Sobeys. They do take Air Miles.
Oh, okay.
Sobeys.
Just the grocery stores and the gas stations, like we do gas stations, grocery stores.
And they're the Sobeys liquor stores. You can cash in your Sobeys.
Sobeys has a liquor store?
We do in Saskatchewan here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Whatever points we get using Air Miles, we can redeem them towards either the grocery stores or the liquor stores.
Yeah.
Well, we don't get any of that stuff out here in BC.
Well,
so hello voters, talk to your MPs.
Move this way. Come to Ontario. Anyway, lots of news going on. US, Canada, Mexican borders, land are still closed for another month. Not sure when we're going to see the light at the end of that tunnel, but hopefully sooner than later. We welcomed the US into our country. What was it? August
9th,
right.
Yeah.
Which was just the Canadian borders were going to strike just days before that. And they did actually get a contract settled just before that. And when the border was open, I know in certain places they were waiting like 4 hours to come in from the US. It was crazy. I would not want to be in that lineup, but
there's a border wait checklist on or a wait check time to see how long the waits at the borders are. And I did do a check that day. Yeah. And our Saskatchewan border crossing was a 4-hour delay.
Wow.
Yeah. But glad that they solved that, because that was just another.
It would have been a nightmare. Yeah. For sure. Just another thing to add to the list.
Yeah.
The US State Department has lowered the COVID-19 travel advisory to Canada they've lowered it to a level 2. I'm not sure how many levels they have, but it basically, that means we're welcome in, but to exceed with caution. So, but by that meaning air, again, not land, because it is still closed. The US are also planning to accept vaccinated travelers, which is what we require to have to come in here. But there's been no talk of a settlement date or anything like that for that one either. The Liberal government in Canada is now requiring, as of October 5th,
Mhm.
you must be fully vaccinated to travel by planes, trains, cruise
Automobiles.
ships,
No.
ferries, planes, trains, and automobiles. Exactly. Yeah. So they've mandated that now, that starting October, they will, it's a request by the federal government, but the election's now going to be on the 21st. So that could off scale that, because the Conservatives, they don't want that. So
Yeah.
we'll see what kind of fight that brings. But again, if everybody would just mandate everything to be across the board, nobody would be running into all these gray issues everywhere in the world. But masks are mandatory on US based flights. That has been extended to the 18th of January 2022. Canadians have not said anything about that, so we don't really know a whole lot about that yet. But
I'm sure they're gonna extend them too.
Why not?
Yeah.
Like it's now the new norm. So what difference does it make? You might as well keep everybody
So,
safe.
Until we get out of this.
There is a lot of stuff that you have to talk about today, Tammy, in the destination world. Why don't you walk us through that?
Yes, there is. Okay, first off, we're really thankful to everyone over in the Cancun Riviera Maya side that just encountered their first kind of hurricane that went over. Not a lot of major damage, no structural damage, nothing too crazy as it passed over as just a Hurricane 1, but the winds are quite substantial for that. But it sounds like there's sunny skies are back and waves are calming down. So yeah, we're glad to hear that everybody's doing okay over there.
I thought I read somewhere this morning that they were getting double slammed. It had come back around.
I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, I read that this
what?
morning.
But people were posting stuff on Facebook saying that they were through the worst of it.
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. It came back around. They said what it said was Friday morning. So something must have
Oh, okay. I haven't caught up
maybe
on that news
just
yet
twist the
then.
tail end of it. And
Yeah, or it might be that it pulled around up in Merida, and then it's affecting that area, which is, as much as it's a tourist area, it's right now, I think the majority tourist areas are predominantly Cancun, Puerto Playa del Carmen, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll keep you posted.
Keep an eye on that.
Then. What else we got here? Okay, the UK Transport Secretary said fully vaccinations is most likely going to be a requirement for entry into most countries from now on. Most of our tour operators, such as Kentucky, Trafalgar, Insight, Intrepid, will require to be fully vaccinated prior to departure, and individuals with blended vaccinations will be allowed on tours. So that's kind of a nice option for those that may have the mixed vaccinations, so that they can still travel. But then there is still the individual countries will have their own restrictions for entry. So you just got to make sure that whatever tour you take, that what country that they're going to allow you if you're mixed.
Yeah.
Sunwing is going to start directs to Aruba in September from Toronto. Walt Disney World theme parks will be making outdoor masks optional starting August 19th, starting today. And they were previously mandatory. However, all visitors the age of 2 and up at all indoor locations such as restaurants, theaters, transportation will be required to still wear them. We've got like Panama, Italy, Bahamas, Turks and Caicos. They're all going to be reopening and accepting American and Canadian citizens, but there is going to be restrictions. So you're just going to have to double check which country you decide to go to, just to make sure what their restrictions are. A lot of them are just being fully vaccinated, possible testing, negative testing prior to arrival. We also have a few new resorts to mention. The AM brand has brought back, is now going to open a Zoltree, Marigot Bay in St. Lucia, and they are bringing back the Zoltree Casa del Mar in Los Cabos. And this used to be one of their hotels I'm going to say about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And then it was switched over to another resort and they bought it back. So that's going to be opening up here later this year. We also have the Baja Runaway Jamaica is going to open up in September. The Hyatt International has purchased Apple Leisure Group, which also owns the AM Resort brand. So there's going to be kind of a change in that branding, I guess. It doesn't sound like major changes are going to take place in the short term, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that buyout.
And for that one, that's so for those who don't know, like we know the chain names, but for you guys who are watching, you would know that as Dreams Resorts, the Now Resorts, Secrets, Breathless, Zoetree, and Sunscape. Did I miss anything?
Breathless? Yeah, you took Breathless.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah.
So
yeah,
they are now owned by Hyatt.
Interesting times.
Yes. Also, we did notice that the Sandoz resorts located in Mexico will be offering free PCR and antigen tests when you stay at their resorts for, I believe it's either 5 nights or 7 nights, but to have that PCR test included with your stay is a
nice.
cost savings because it's otherwise $150 US. So that's nice for Sandoz to offer that.
Yeah.
And just a few more here. Grenada, the Spice Island of the Caribbean, is now open for Canadians. That should have been mentioned earlier. And Charisma is going to be adding 2 Azul beaches, Azul Beach resorts in the DR, which is going to be the Azul Beach Resort Cap Cana, is going to launch this winter, and the rebranded Sensatori Punta Cana is now the Azul Beach Resort Punta Cana, opening in November. So yeah, so a few rebranding, changes of names, just everybody's taking the opportunity, I guess, right now to change things up on us, just add to our crazy world.
I think I'm gonna do a flow chart to show like Azul Beach is now Margaritaville Island Reserve. Azul Sensatori is now Azul Beach. Like, you gotta look for it. It's like, well, I can't. Why is the resort? Oh, it's called something new now. Oh, now
Same with the Nows and the Now Jade, Now Sapphire, Now Dreams Resorts, and it's hard to keep track.
Yeah,
indeed.
It's been a big overhaul, though. There's a lot of properties have done that over the course of the last 18 months. They're always doing it down the line somewhere, but not as many as we've seen since COVID started.
How many there's been.
Yeah, it's a lot, but that's good.
Good, and that's all I have for news and destination wise.
Awesome. What about you, Christine? What's going on in the cruise news?
A lot is going on, Sherry. I'm glad you asked. So Norwegian, now this is a tough one to keep up with, right? So Florida said no vaccines can be required to cruise. Norwegian said, forget that, we're going to sue you. Then they went to court, and I think it was Florida who won first, then Norwegian countered and they won, and they actually had a cruise go this past week. And then now Florida is going to challenge that. They're going to take it to the 11th Court of Appeals. So, stay tuned, folks. I don't know what's going to happen. But what's interesting is, so Norwegian did, as I say, they embarked on their first cruise from Miami since lockdown, since everything stopped. And they've gone the route of 100% vaccinated crew and passengers only. So there's no kids on board. There's no people who medically can't get vaccines. 100% vaccination required. And it's going well. By comparison, Royal Caribbean is going the route of that you don't have to be fully vaccinated. Is that right? But you must wear a mask. So, there's a couple of different things going on depending on which cruise line you're looking at. Yeah. And they've had some, drama with these different things. But they're getting about between a 90 to 97% is what it works out to of the passengers are fully vaccinated. So really the people who aren't vaccinated on board right now are kids.
Right.
So that was really minimizing the amount of exposure potential. Just this morning, the Bahamas announced that for all the cruise ships who said, well, we're not going to do this battle with Miami. We're going to sail from, what did we say? They were going to sail from St. Lucia, St. Martin, the Bahamas, and Antigua, I think. Well, all of them had ports in the Bahamas, and anybody who's cruised before knows that one of the cool things that these cruise ships offer is the ability to stop on one of their private island in the Bahamas, because the Bahamas like 360 islands and keys. And the Bahamas just came out and said, no, the cruise ship, it's not even coming into port if you have anybody on board who's not fully vaccinated. So we're going to see a massive amount, and this goes into effect September 3rd. So we're going to see a massive amount of changes. Now, I should say, in the example of the Bahamas, if you're medically unable to get a vaccine, or you're a kid under 12 who they haven't approved vaccines for yet, they're still allowed to be on board. The ship is still allowed to go into port. Right. Also, if there's an emergency, they're not going to be jerks about it.
Right.
But yeah, that's, for the most part, that's what's happening with that. And then, of course, all the other cruise lines are getting into the mask requirements, negative COVID tests to get on board. Royal Caribbean was actually sharing their numbers and saying that with all the testing that they were doing ahead of time, that they were catching 2 to 10 people on their pre-screening before they would go on board. And they were also doing weekly screenings of guests. Well, because, you know, some of the cruises are like 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 months.
Yeah.
And so that they are doing regular testing of the passengers, and they're finding 1 or 2 cases per week. And in those cases, they either isolate them, or if it's pre-boarding, they basically say, well, you can't come on board the ship because we don't know if you're really sick or what's going on.
Right.
And they fly them home. And then for the most part, they're flying them home on a private jet. Like, okay, I'm not going to be super disappointed.
I have to be turned away.
Exactly.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically, I printed out my notes, you guys, and my section is, I don't know if I'm on some ink saver mode for just my cruising section, but I can barely read what I wrote. But that's basically everything I have for cruising. So
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Stay tuned. It's all fun.
Yeah,
fun time.
Again, there's like, our show is going to be, I think, would we say September 11th. So we're carrying it through another 3 weeks, because it's almost, it doesn't make sense for us to give you the news every 2 weeks when it's either old or it's changed 15 times since then. So this way we can collaborate and you know, get some information together of what's going on and what's happening at the moment. So we know what we need to get back into Canada, but maybe we should have a discussion with anybody that is traveling across to like North America, or, you know, Europe, doesn't matter, what you need to get back into Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I've got a trip next month, right? Hopefully, you know, depending on what happens, right? And you have to look at your trips like, right? You know, maybe it's going to happen, maybe not. So obviously, we know, just to confirm for everybody, to come back into Canada, you need to have as of August 9th, this all changed. Mm-hmm. So currently the hotel quarantine program is gone. It's finished. If you're unvaccinated, you still need to have a negative test before you get on that plane to come home. Mm-hmm. And then they are doing random screening at the airports. It's not a mandatory test when you get back, but then you need to quarantine for 14 days in your home or wherever you're going to quarantine once you get back. If you're fully vaccinated, you just have to have the negative PCR test 72 hours prior. And then again, at the airport, it's a random testing program. So you might or may not get another Q-tip up your nose.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then you just need to make sure that you have a place to self-isolate for those days until you get another test, until you get that test back as negative. And then you have to also make sure that you have a copy of your vaccinations, your PCR negative test, and everything needs to be included into the ArriveCAN app. Right. That you will have all that information in there that you show the customs and immigrations.
You have to preload that, right? Like
Yes,
you
you
have to
will.
have it preloaded before you get on the plane.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because if your chances are, if you don't have access to any Wi-Fi anywhere along the line before, well, yeah, you will need, because you need the negative test, the PCR test in order to board the plane. So yeah, you're going to need that. And having printed copies as well is going to be a good thing too, just in case.
Well, it's just
For some reason you can't get that app working, or you don't have access to Wi-Fi, or like internet.
Yeah.
Make sure you have copies of all your vaccinations and tests, and copies of where you're going to be staying in case you're like visiting, information, that sort of information, so you can provide it to the CBSAs there and they can move on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Because we're, as we said before earlier on the show, that the Americans are now allowed to come into Canada September 7th. I believe it's the 7th, is when they start welcoming the international flights coming into Canada. So we'll see how that goes. And we'll have a good idea on that when we do our next show. So that's, it's nice to see people being able to come back in here. I just wish it was easier to get out.
I know.
Yeah. Well, and to that end, you asked about what the requirements are for going into the US, and we didn't, I mowed down that question pretty quickly, but just to confirm for everybody that we've never not been able to fly into the US.
That's right. Yeah.
So you definitely can go to the US. You cannot drive there, but you can fly there. And if you want to fly there, you have to have a negative antigen test in order to be allowed in without quarantine. However, as Tammy was quick to point out, each state is now changing their individual requirements. So like Hawaii, we know you have to get special tests done, and those are generally PCR. So they're the super expensive ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, check with each individual state to see what the requirements are.
Yeah. It's really hard to, I mean, there's got to be a better way, because the websites for each of these states are so long.
Yeah.
None of it makes any sense. One time it's telling you that you need an antigen test, and then you read down 4 paragraphs later and it says, no, we require a PCR test as of this date. So again, it's always, you're right, it's always changing. And most places were doing just the antigen test for the states, but some places now are requiring the PCR. So you got to keep up on it. And again, it could, by the time you booked your flight and by the time you travel, it could change again. So
oh yeah, guaranteed it's going to.
Be sure to keep looking and watching those, because they're always changing.
Yeah, it's really hard. And even I'm finding the government websites, they're not up to date.
No.
So I will say from the bottom of my heart, there's not a single website out there that you can 100% rely on for the most up-to-date and completely accurate information.
I don't think so either. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. It almost
really
makes you want to, I know,
So
it almost makes you like, not that you want to go out and spend that additional 100, 150, 200 bucks, whatever they're charging for these PCR tests. But in the grand scheme of things, you're almost better off to say, you know what, just do it and be safe, and be vaccinated. And then, you're good. There's no questions asked, right?
And on the heels of a $2,000, $3,000 trip, what's another 150 bucks?
Right.
I mean, this is not the time of, I got a trip for $5.99.
Right. Yeah.
And expecting it's going to cost $5.99.
Yeah.
Because once you add in all your testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just the cost of traveling right now.
It
you
is.
just have to accept it.
Right. And it could be like that for a while. Who knows? Again, everything's changing. So just keep an eye on it. Be safe.
Yeah.
For sure.
What do we know, Tammy, about our national drink days and stuff coming up?
Our national fun national days and fun facts. Okay, so we've got actually quite a few, just because we missed a few weeks here. So we have into August 8th, International Scottish Gin Day. That was my Scottish.
Can I just ask you guys, have you guys completely lost your ability to do other accents since we haven't been traveling? I tried to do a Mexican or a Spanish accent the other day. I sounded Irish or something. Like my husband's laughing at me like, what is she talking about? I probably
Yeah.
couldn't, I'm not even going to try to do a Jamaican accent. I mean, I love the sound. I love hearing those voices, but
I know. I miss them
not,
too.
no more.
I don't think I ever really could do one really well anyway.
And
So I'm not
apparently
gonna.
I can't either. So August 16th, we had National Rum Day.
Cheers to that.
Hey.
Yes, cheers.
August 18th, Pinot Noir. Oh my goodness.
What's in your glass, Tammy?
Oh my God, we're gonna skip that
Pinot
one.
Noir, the wine.
Why can't I say that? Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, on to August 20th, National Lemonade Day. August 21st, National Sweet Tea Day. August 25th, Whiskey Sour Day. August 26th, here's a good one for you guys, National Burger Day. And have you ever had a really good burger at one of the resorts while out traveling?
Oh yeah.
Christine?
Yeah,
Resorts.
you know, one of my favorite resorts, which I've probably been to a couple of dozen times now, and one of my friends, he's been back more times than I can count, and he refuses to stay anywhere else because he knows what he's gonna get. He loves it. It's so common, it's so consistent. Dreams Port Aventuras. They have a Juicy Lucy burger on their menu at the Seaside Grill, or they did, anyways. They're under renovation now, so we'll see what happens. Basically, it's a burger grilled to perfection with cheese inside. Oh my.
We always go back to the cheese.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
the
like
burger,
bacon.
it's the cheese.
Yeah, it's like bacon. It makes everything better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
I
you?
have to
What
say,
have you, Sherry?
probably mine would be room service. Hard Rock has one of the best burgers.
I think
Yes.
so too. I
Yeah.
agree. They're good.
Yeah, the burgers for I've only ever had them for room service. So yeah, that would be probably, if I had to. I'm not a big burger eater to start with, but if I had to say, that's probably the only place I've had them, and it's
Right.
room service.
That's
Yeah.
pretty high marks for room service, because usually room service is sort of hit and miss. And
That's one of the best things that they have.
Yeah,
Like,
Oh,
I
really?
have to
I mean, the
agree.
restaurants are fabulous, but their room service is like,
Yeah.
I
I
agree
too.
I've eaten my
There
room more than
is-
once.
Yeah. There is, with the new Planet Hollywood, they got the Guy Fieri
Oh, yeah.
burger joint in their hotel there. So I'd be curious to see how their burgers are there. They should
Right.
be.
Yeah.
interesting.
All right,
Burgers,
back to our dates here. August 28th, National Red Wine Day. August 29, Cabernet Sauvignon Day. Cab Sav Day is
There
what
you
I
go.
usually will call it because I can't say it otherwise. Oh my God. August 29th, National Lemon Juice Day. And then we've got a few special days coming up. I want to wish my hubby a happy birthday. He's coming up on August 23rd.
Happy
And
birthday,
our sweet
Colin.
little Sherry here, her birthday's on August 26th.
Happy birthday.
So wish her a happy birthday when you
And
see her.
cheers.
Yes.
Cheers. Thank
Cheers,
you.
cheers.
Yes.
And I'm
Just
going
me.
to just say a
Good,
happy
that's it.
birthday to my brother Jason, who's going to be, his birthday's on August 27th. And
Lots
that's
of
really kind of
birthdays.
all I have. We'll have Labor Day weekend next weekend, so we won't see you before then. So
Right.
have a good, safe, long Labor Day weekend.
Yes, and then the kids go back to school. Yay.
Yeah, that should be on there too. Hey, special.
It's wonderful news for me.
And that's all I have for dates.
Awesome. So, well, that's great. I hope you guys have a good long weekend and everybody has great birthdays, and maybe cook some burgers on the barbecue tonight.
And drink some Cab Sav.
You know what? Before we wrap up, I wanted to mention, I forgot to write it down in our program, but you know, remember we were talking a few months ago, I don't know if you guys have seen this, about the car rental issues in Hawaii, that basically there was a massive shortage of cars, and if you wanted to rent a car, it was going to be like
Crazy expensive.
$2,000 for a week-long rental. Well, I just read a story yesterday or something this morning, that they're having more issues, and it's not just restricted to Hawaii. It's in Canada, it's in the US. And I thought, oh, like, come on, there's lots of cars in Canada. And I looked it up. My sister-in-law rented a car in Vancouver, I don't know, a month ago. For 10 days, it was $500. And I looked it up for a couple random dates in August and September, and it was no less than $1,300
That's crazy.
for 7 days.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
way more expensive now.
Yeah.
And the article was quoting the founder of Expedia.ca, and he was saying, you know, it's not just that the cars are more expensive, it's that there's such a shortage.
Yeah.
If your car that you've rented is returned late or has a mechanical issue or anything like that, you might be stuffed. You might not actually get your car rental. So especially if you're going to Hawaii, Bob and Doris, if you're watching, you might want to have a backup plan, because the last thing you want to do is, you know, arrive at 10:30
Get there and not,
and then you have to take a taxi across the island. Like,
yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I had a coworker, she was booking flights for somebody in St. John, and there was no car rentals to be had at all. Zero.
yeah,
They don't have a whole lot of companies there to begin with, because it's a small place, right? But none of them. There was one, I think, and I wanted to say it was mystery car.
oh,
And I'm like, what's a mystery car? Like, you basically really don't know what you're going to get till you get there.
yeah,
Like, that's what they called it. It was a mystery car. And I'm
an
like,
electronic bike.
interesting. But I think it has something to do too, does it not, that they're not, because usually there's a lot of one-way rentals, right? So like, say if someone's driving from Calgary to Vancouver and they pick it up in Calgary, they drop it off in Vancouver, they're not coming back, right? So now the shortage is being depleted in all these places that aren't able to get these car rentals back.
Right.
So there's an actual shortage on vehicles, period.
Well, I think so. What I had read is that there's a shortage on the metals that make catalytic converters. So, you know, when Hertz went into Chapter 11, and Hertz is the owner of Hertz Rent-A-Car, Thrifty, Dollar, and some other brand.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they sold a bunch of their vehicles to increase cash flow, which made sense because all the cars were just sitting in the lot.
For sure. Yeah.
And now they're trying to buy them back, and there's a shortage. You'll know if you drive around the car lots, a lot of them are like kind of looking empty. Like, what's going on? Are they playing hide and seek?
Yeah.
And it's because they're having difficulty bringing them in.
Yeah. I've
So
heard that
it's just
too.
compounding things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So book your car rental before you go. Don't walk off the plane expecting to be able to walk up to Alamo or Hertz or Thrifty or whatever. And maybe you might be taking a cab or an Uber. Or
I was gonna say,
hopefully
you'll be
it's not
taking a
that
cab.
far. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, good stuff. I don't have anything else. If you guys don't have anything else, we'll wrap up the show and see you guys on September 11th. Again, if you like our Facebook, or if you like our show, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our Facebook page, which is Tammy.
Facebook/groups A New View on Travel.
Awesome. Have a great long weekend. Enjoy the rest of your summer, because it's coming to an end. So
Alrighty.
it's going to be over before we know it.
Yeah.
The countdown's coming.
And on that happy note.
Yeah. But then bring on the fall, winter travelers.
Exactly. I was counting down to get it a little bit colder so we can get those winter people out of here.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Awesome. Have a good weekend, guys.
See ya.
See you later.
See ya.